Welcome to Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where seasoned leaders and top-tier executives in science, tech, pharma, finance, and innovation open up and get real with me and with you. You'll hear personal stories from key moments of their career arcs and how they've struggled and succeeded when it comes to moving audiences from the red light of risk to the green light of go. I'm Cindy Skalicky, storytelling strategist and author of the best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light, How Top Leaders Present with Polish, Get Buy-in, and Become More Influential. For decades, I've worked with top executives inside their most influential and high-stakes moments with stakeholder audiences they needed to move. On this podcast, you'll hear from an exceptional invite-only lineup of leaders who've been in the room and at the table when stakes were high, decisions were hard, and their stories had to land. From the virtual room to the boardroom, they'll share what worked, what didn't, and how they paved a path of green lights by communicating authentically through their strategic stories. This is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips you can try immediately to drive the vision of innovation with your team. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where we bring to you some incredible talent in the spaces of science, technology, and innovation. I'm your host, Cindy Skalicky, and we have a return guest today, our first return guest, Deb Reuben. Deb, it's so wonderful to have you back.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know I was your first return guest, so that's exciting.
Yeah, I just realized that, but there's a really good reason behind that, everybody. Deb has a book that is now out for purchase, and it is just phenomenal. I want to read a quick intro of Deb for all of you who are new to her brilliance, and then we'll talk about what TomorrowZone means and get into the book themes that you're ready to share with the world, Deb. So
Awesome.
I've got it right up here. Deb Reuben is an innovation strategist and CEO and founder of TomorrowZone. She works with senior leaders navigating complexity to help them step out of reactive mode, gain clarity, and intentionally design what comes next. She is the author of the book, Enter the Tomorrow Zone. And I want to pause there because honestly, we provide similar results in different areas, right? Like I was like, gosh, I help people with complexity and getting clarity, but you're doing it on a totally different plane, I guess you would say, which is the Tomorrow Zone. So tell us, Deb, what does that term mean to you and how should listeners think about it?
So TomorrowZone is all about expanding future possibilities before you narrow your direction. And it's how you can really improve the quality of the judgments that you're making in uncertain times. Okay. And, face it, that's the world we're living in today. Right. I'm a part of an innovation, sort of a mastermind working group. I don't know what you call it, think tank, people from all different industries. And so it's not just my industry lens, but all over the place, people are feeling this. They're calling it VUCA Max. So you may have heard of VUCA before: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, but Max. The change that we're facing today is coming at us from all sides. It's massive, it's accelerating, and it's exponential. Yeah. And so, getting into the Tomorrow Zone is about pausing just long enough to explore future possibilities before your decisions harden. And now you're going in a direction that's tough to reverse or change.
Well, that's, in my mind, kind of the key. The last thing you said, that it's tough to reverse and it's tough to change again if you're not approaching it as correctly as possible the first time through.
Yeah.
And it is an enormous spend and potential waste of time, energy, mind
And
share, trust, and money. Like everybody, automatically goes to the money piece that's wasted, but there's more now that we are familiar with the cost of not in so many other areas. It's about your people. So talk a little about the people first piece and maybe your intro story from the very first part of the book where you learned this the hard way.
Yeah, I definitely learned this the hard way. So so my background is in technology, and I started in finance as a software developer, application developer, and so that was my lens on the world. And along the way, I ended up being recruited to help start up a equipment leasing and finance company for a regional bank, and so we were breaking new ground. We were doing something very innovative. And at the time, we were one of the first companies in our industry to tie together capabilities end to end for an origination platform. And I found myself leading this innovation initiative, and we thought we were ready, but we didn't know what we didn't know. And the vendor thought they were ready. We thought we were ready. And suddenly, I find myself in this situation where every day I'm playing a game of whack-a-mole, just more hours, more hours, more hours. If we just work one more late night, just one more late night, just one more late night. And it was constant uncertainty and challenge. The finish line kept moving and the team was burning out, and I didn't realize the cost that I was incurring until I ended up in the hospital.
Wow.
I think a lot of times leaders don't realize just the toll that something like that is taking until it's too late. And so fortunately, I was working with a fantastic group of executives that were willing to stop the madness, step back, reset, and get really, really honest about what does it mean to be ready? Are we even clear on what we're trying to accomplish together with our software vendor as a partner and not an adversary, And so it was such a formative experience for me. And it was really interesting because I stayed with that finance company for a number of years and then ended up going on other adventures in my career. I worked in software as a product manager for a software company, and then ended up launching my consulting firm over a dozen years ago. And at first, when I was going through that experience back in the day, I thought, Cindy, that this was a one-off. I thought, oh man, that was just a really tough experience. Learned a lot. I know how to spectacularly fail and also succeed. We turned that project around and we went on to win an innovation award in the industry.
Wow.
But the interesting thing for me as I was moving along in my career, whether I was looking at it from the software company lens or I was looking at things from the consulting lens, I kept seeing the patterns repeating over and over and over again. Different cast of characters, same plot. And I realized as I started recognizing these patterns, like this is not a specific industry where this is happening. It's not a specific ERP system or software platform. Wherever we have people, process, technology, and future expectations coming together, we have a recipe for a nightmare or something awesome. And so what do we do to make sure that we land on the awesome side of that story rather than the nightmare? And so I started to just really dig in and look at, what can we do about this? What is causing this, and what are the patterns that cause teams to succeed? And what are those patterns that keep repeating that are causing folks to experience less than stellar results?
Exactly. Well, I think you're hitting on, it makes a lot of sense that people would go out and just choose a technology that would fix the problem and hope that that's all they need to do to fix the problem. And it's clear from your book that people must be on board with that vision and have the clarity and the trust and connection that you speak a lot about in the book when it comes to making sure it's a success. So can you dive in for us a little bit to kind of, how's the book structured? If someone comes in and wants to read this, what are they getting into from your process that you lay out so beautifully in the book? How would someone approach the book, and who's it written for?
Well, the avatar I had in my mind as I was writing this, there were actual senior leaders that I had in my head.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah, and so I wrote this
you don't have
for.
To say their names, but
no, I won't say their names, but I wrote this for senior executives and innovation leaders who are accountable for outcomes.
Okay.
Not just activities. They're leading very complex cross-functional change, and basically their head is on the line for the outcomes. Okay. They may not necessarily be technical, and they are expected to operate under conditions of uncertainty, and they're sensing that there is a better future available, but it's not fully visible yet. And so, I really wanted to write this for those leaders who are accountable for shaping the future, and they don't want to lock into yesterday's answers too soon. They don't want to copy the past and paste it on new cool technology, but they really want to shape a bigger, better future for themselves, for their team, for their company.
Yeah, fantastic.
Hey listeners, super quick station break question for you. Have you ordered your copy of my new best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light? Check it out. Grab your copy today at onpoint-communications.com/book. And now back to the show.
Well, I like that you mentioned they're not always the techie person, but they are leading, they are responsible for the outcome, and the overarching success or failure of the project, largely anyway, lies on their shoulders. Right?
Yeah. I mean, this could affect just about any leader today, because you think about our day-to-day life. I mean, do we even talk about a divide between business and technology anymore? It's pretty blended.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Digital, tech, I don't even know why we say those words anymore. It's just enmeshed into everything that we do now.
Right. Yep. And so, there's actually a guest I had, I don't know, maybe last year, we were talking about change and how change is, change is fast. Yeah. No kidding. The sky is blue, right? But it's like fast change is what we have to be even more equipped for these days at a rate that's just difficult to navigate with integrity, success, and at the level of relationship that's required if change is going to happen that fast. I think that's an interesting insight from all that we are seeing from the advent of AI and all that's going on in the digital world. It's just really tough to keep up, frankly.
It is, yeah. It is, and speed is often rewarded until it isn't.
Right. I mean, we see it in the news every day, right? So.
Well, yeah, and it's one thing to go fast. It's another thing entirely to go fast in the right direction.
There you go.
And bring your people along with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, when you get to the team and you're, going to kind of sit down with them and help them do the things that your model helps them do by putting people and process and clarity first. What are you met with when it comes to the mindset of the leaders? I mean, obviously, if they're going to use your system and adopt this new way of doing things, they're open already, right?
Yeah.
But what are some of the red light blockers, I guess you would say, for some of the teams initially, until they kind of get the hang of what your process brings for them results-wise?
So I'm just thinking, how do I boil this down? So often when we have a client come to us, they're facing a big high stakes change. They're often nervous.
Sure.
something might feel a little off. Or they might be about to commit to a major technology decision. They might already be in the messy middle of an initiative, and it feels like momentum is slipping. And so one of the things that we do, we were talking about speed, and often speed is rewarded, but the counterintuitive thing that we're doing is we're coming in and we are slowing things down just enough.
Okay.
To get the right dose of clarity so that we can align people around what really matters and make sure that they're all solving the right problem that's valuable to solve before they're lacking in solutions. And so it's always about clarity before technology.
Okay.
And, I was thinking about what would be a, sort of an analogy to describe, what teams are facing. And it often feels, so if you look at a team when they're facing a digital transformation, there's usually a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning, especially among the folks that were a part of selecting the solution or building the business case, because they all understand the same version of the big picture vision. When we start to bring other people into it, we immediately lose that clarity. And we have a team now of people with diverse perspectives, definitions of success, who do not hold the same big picture. They have a different box top of the puzzle that they're putting together.
Okay.
So one of the things that we're doing is making sure that people have a shared understanding of not only where they're going and what they're trying to achieve, but more importantly, why.
Yes. What's the why? What's the point? What's the end game? And how is our shared language helping us, or how is our not shared language hurting us?
That shared language actually is a big deal, and it's so sneaky. So I do a lot of my work in the equipment finance space, which has its own weird lingo of its own. I wrote the Certified Leasing and Finance Professionals Handbook a while back, and I remember the debates and the discussions as I was working with over 40 subject matter experts to align on even just the language in our glossary. And so this happens at an industry level for sure. But even more surprising is when you see this pattern happen in teams who are assuming definitions of some of the simplest terms. And so it's very safe for me to come in from the outside and ask, hey, can I ask a stupid question? In your context right now, what does that term mean to you?
Yes.
All of the other people in the room breathe a sigh of relief.
Thank you for asking this question.
And then we experience surprise as people realize, we did not have a shared understanding of the thing, and we kept using the same word. Often that word these days is AI.
Right.
And we don't have a shared definition together of what we mean by that. And it happens all the time, more often than you might think. I've had clients pull me aside after an engagement and say, one of the things I really appreciated is that you stop us to clarify what we mean.
Yes. I mean,
and that's back to speed,
Right. Well, and a very simple example is right here on this show. I'll say red lights. Well, we all know what a red light is, but I mean a red light as something that's risky, that someone wouldn't want to go toward, that keeps them from having a great presentation, something that stops them. So in this very show, there's little meanings that I've attributed to red lights and green lights that anyone would feel stupid asking unless it was you asked it, in your context, what do you mean by that word? And I'd be yeah, that's a great question because it's different than what you might have in your head. And the shared language, it matters, and it accelerates the project, the people, and the feeling of camaraderie. Just this morning, I was in a session. I use a 5-layer cake as an analogy for depth, duration, and detail, where like the 5th layer of the cake is the deepest. And I was so proud of this person on this group session who said, for this session today, Cindy, what layer of the cake is this? And I was like, it's about 3rd, and everybody knew what that person meant, and it was fun for them to use it. And it's very, it's powerful, and the shared language is really important.
Well, I think there's another level too, when it comes to shared language. It's not just the words that we say or hear. It's also what's the picture that you see in your head.
Oh, yes. That's
and
great.
So often when I encounter a team and they're getting ready to embark on a big transformational initiative, the folks that were involved in the upfront work of selecting the solution, of building the business case, and all those things, they often have a pretty solid shared understanding of what it is they're trying to achieve and why. And why they're doing it the way that they're doing it. The how always comes from the why.
Right.
But when they start to add new people and they start to kick off, it starts to happen really early, especially in digital transformation initiatives, where we start to find that people do not hold the same big picture in their head.
Right.
And you have to actually paint that for them. You need to make the implicit explicit. And so I think about it sometimes like a race. When I run into teams that are facing a digital transformation, they often feel like they're being told to run a race without clarity on the starting line or the finish line, or what it means to win. Some people are coming in thinking it's a sprint. Others are coming in thinking it's a marathon. And then halfway through, they are all starting to realize, this isn't flat terrain. This is a parkour course.
This is a mountain. This is
the
marathon.
So one of the things that we do in our engagements is we do an engagement that we call the Catalyst Sprint. It catalyzes shared understanding of language and the big picture. And it helps teams to understand what race they're actually in.
Yeah.
And we change then how they train for everything that comes after.
Yes. Okay.
It's very different to train for a marathon versus a sprint.
It totally is. It's completely different. It's not even the same thing, really.
And parkour is a whole different thing.
Right.
That's often what these projects can feel like in the messy middle.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, preparedness isn't just we've reached a certain date or we've signed on the dotted line with our software vendor. Are your people ready to face the challenges that are inevitably going to come? Do they have the clarity that they need to face those challenges? Yes. And when we prepare them right, and this doesn't have to take long, but if we prepare them right with that shared language and shared understanding, that shared mental model of what this course looks like, they're ready to face those challenges.
Yeah.
And they level up their judgment quality as they're facing uncertainty.
Okay. I want to pick up that term, judgment quality, that you said, because I know that's huge when it comes to the output that you bring for leaders that are, wondering, like, what am I going to get from this process, not just on paper, but talk a little about what you mean by judgment quality and how you change that for people throughout your process.
Yeah, here's a simple example. And if you've ever been through a major digital transformation or a technology implementation initiative, whether it's implementing a new CRM or automation or end-to-end workflow, whatever it is, you are always going to be faced with a multitude of decisions.
Yes.
If you think about a typical ERP system, even if you think you're getting I'm going to do air quotes here for our listeners, out of the box, there is no box. Even if you think you're just getting like the standard thing, there are still decisions that have to be made along the way to configure or set up or tailor that thing for your context, your business.
Right.
What you're trying to achieve in your world. And so there's no copy and paste approach to this. And there are decisions that you're going to have to make. Some of these, you don't even know that you're going to have to make them when you start. These are the things that show up as surprises. And so one of the things that helps to increase the quality of the judgment or the decisions that you're making as you're going through this messy middle of transformation is to have very clear guiding principles that you all share. There's an example that I share in my book. This is one of my favorite stories. I was working with a global manufacturing company that had a captive finance group, and we were rolling out an origination platform around the world. And so I was there in the very beginning to help them get the architectural decisions right on how we needed to design so that it would stand the test of time as they were rolling it out to many, many countries. And one of the things that really stood out to me that was, I think, a fantastic habit, I still use it with my clients today, is we set very clear guiding principles from the start. And we continued to reinforce those with the team every time we met. Because no matter which topic, you're going to have people from different geos, different departments, different expertise, whether it's legal, accounting, whatever. And so we had to continually ground people in, this is what we're doing, and these are the guardrails within which we're doing it. And they would recite their guiding principles at the beginning of every session.
Can you give an example of a
here's some examples. We are building a solution that is meant to be upgradable, maintainable, and sustainable long-term. We are going to make choices for core functionality over customization, unless absolutely justified to the highest levels of executive authority. We're going to, try to design, we're going to design globally and then localize minimally where necessary. So they were trying to understand where they could, have kind of an 80-20. We can't be custom in every single country. That's not scalable. It's like not sustainable.
Basically, like allegiance to this mission, right?
Kind of, yeah. But the thing is, back to what we were talking about before with shared language. If we don't have shared guiding principles, we are going to make bad decisions along the way. When we remind ourselves of those principles throughout the entire journey, we're going to make much better decisions.
That's brilliant, Deb.
10 years later, I ran into people that were a part of this team, and they are still rolling this solution out around the world. But when we have solid guiding principles and we all understand them together, and we continually reinforce them, we've got shared language, a shared big picture, shared guiding principles. Now we have much better judgment under uncertainty, because the world's going to keep changing. Different countries are going to have different regulations. We're going to face all these different things, but now we know, like, where are the real constraints that we need to continually be aware of and work within. And that's how you can design something that can stand the test of time, even in a fast moving world, even with uncertainty. And, it's not about the technology. It wasn't the tech. It was the quality of the judgment of the people that were involved in it.
I don't know, listeners, can you hear the excitement in Deb's voice? Just getting all riled up over there. Well, my favorite guiding principle that you named as an example was when you said something like, we're going to choose this over this if this comes to a head. And that's gold, because you forget that you are going to get clouded without remembering the clear that you set up and established. And so when you hit those moments and it is cloudy, it is fuzzy, it is messy in the middle, you have them written down. They're like core values to a brand, are like guiding principles to this project, is how I see that through my lens. And that
very
is
similar.
Hugely valuable.
Fantastic. And when it's something that people can just remember and they can rattle it off. Now they're not just saying it, they're living it.
They believe it.
They're living it. That's the difference.
Hey listeners, super quick station break question for you. Have you ordered your copy of my new best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light? Check it out. Grab your copy today at onpoint-communications.com/book. And now back to the show.
Wow. Well, Deb, when it comes to the years you've been working on adjusting and perfecting this process, what made you decide, okay, it's time for a book to be out about this whole system so that, like what was there like an impetus for this particular moment in your mind? What was going on before you wrote the book?
Yeah. Let me think for a second.
Thinking is allowed.
Thinking is important. I took some notes that I had prepared for this. I can't find them.
Hey, let's roll with it. We're gonna
we're just totally real in the TomorrowZone.
So real. This is
why this book? Why now? I guess it's kind of back to my my earlier story. These patterns keep repeating.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, oh, maybe it's an industry thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to bring some of these ideas forward in masterminds outside of my industry. Mm-hmm. And people were going, oh my God, I need that. Wow, yeah. I know somebody who needs that. Oh, we need that. Yeah. And so I realized, a lot of people are struggling with this. And I think the challenge is there's so much hype these days. Right. You can't look in any direction without seeing a headline about AI and, and all of the other things that are going on. And, I think that there's so much hype and urgency and noise about technology as if technology is some magic bullet that's going to solve everything. And it's like the biggest myth in the world, and when I think about what's funky and sad about innovation today, it's the first thing I see is this pattern of a tech first mindset. That big myth. If we just select the right software, then that's going to solve all of our problems.
Right.
There's so many times I've run into leaders where the last thing they need is to add one more thing to their tech stack.
Right.
There is no amount of software spend that will solve the dysfunction that got you into the situation that's presenting as a problem.
Yeah. Right.
I think often the other thing I encounter is folks that are stuck in yesterday thinking.
Right.
They haven't opened their mind to future possibilities. Right. They haven't diverged enough to explore what is possible.
Right.
And so then with that, you end up getting stuck in a situation where you're spending a lot of resource, money, time, human energy to copy the past and paste it onto new cool technology. And so we're stuck in doing things the way they've always been done because that's the way they've always been done. Because maybe we don't want to step on toes or challenge status quo, but that is not going to move you forward, and it's going to be a very easy way to suddenly slide into irrelevance.
Right.
And so the other thing that happens is often I find teams are disconnected from that overarching vision. They can't see the big picture. And so now we have all these people that are working so hard, like we got to dig holes, and they're just grabbing shovels.
Yes.
And I'm coming in going, do we all understand why we need holes and how deep do we want to dig? Is it so that we can build a foundation for a skyscraper, or are we just building an outhouse? What are you doing and why? Right. And do we all understand together? Yeah. And so I think that, I wanted to create something that would just sort of wake leaders up to a different way of thinking about how we do innovation so that we're not burning people out in the process.
Right. I think this leads to my insights about one of your superpowers, Deb, which, having been around you a lot and met in meetings with you a lot and met with you, in cities around the U.S. and had the fortune of calling you a friend and a colleague. Your question asking is what stands out to me, which is ultimately what you do, is you push the envelope and ask the questions that a lot of people either are afraid to ask, don't know how to ask, or don't even know to ask. And you are constantly bringing fresh ways of thinking about what tomorrow could be and making awesome happen. And that is what is fueling your book and its presence in the world. And it fuels your work and your team and the results that you bring. And it's exciting. So
yeah.
How do you feel like, how could you explain to people who are approaching the book itself? How's it organized? Like, what would you recommend for folks who are getting ready to crack it open and start diving in?
Well, the first part is all about the challenges that we face. And if you're a leader responsible for a big transformational change, or you're part of a team responsible for delivering those changes, you might start to see yourself in some of the experiences that I'm sharing, and the stories and the patterns that I'm surfacing around the challenges. But as you move on through the book, I introduce the TomorrowZone system.
Okay.
And the TomorrowZone system it's not like a linear framework. It's actually a set of mindsets that need to be present. They are interconnected and they work together. And so like I visualize it like gears.
Yes.
Because if one of them is stuck, it's going to cause the others to have trouble engaging, and you're going to start grinding to a halt. And that's what we see in these transformational initiatives. These mindset shifts need to be present, and it's not an event. It's a continuous practice and habit for how we do innovation, because in the end, this is what empowers your people to shape the future. It's for innovation that endures. And so I like that. So take you through the TomorrowZone system and how that can help you to shape a bigger, better future.
Awesome. Well, I am thrilled to be part of the launch party and share the news with the greater community that you're out with your second book, and that it's going to do incredible work with those who pick it up and their teams as they get, kind of out of the feeling of being stuck and into fluidity and, gears that are running on all cylinders, which very similar to the way I talk about persuasive gears and the gears of messaging, and lots of fun common ground for both of us. So any final words, Deb, of thoughts on anyone, maybe someone who's stuck in a gear and can't get it unstuck? Any final words of wisdom?
So I created a short guide called Break Free from Yesterday's Thinking. Awesome. And it's designed to help leaders just simply use the power of the pause to notice where thinking from the past might be shaping today's decisions and preventing you from creating that future that you really want to. And it's not tactical. It's kind of a mindset reset. And so for the right people, it's going to kind of create that, oh, wow, moment. Because like you mentioned earlier, I'm a question machine. There's 8 questions in there that'll really get you thinking about your thinking.
I love that.
And, and then if you're intrigued, the book would be the next step. But this will take you through the very first chapter.
Is that available at your website, Deb?
Yeah. So you can get it at enterthetomorrowzone.com.
Okay. Awesome.
So maybe you can throw it in the show notes so people can find it easy.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Thanks for joining me today. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me back. I'm so excited to be your first of probably many return guests.
Returns. Yes. No, for great reason. Well, thanks for joining me today. And excited for everyone listening here to go grab their copy, which is at Amazon and other places where you might find books, and at your website as well. Don't forget to connect with Deb at LinkedIn and show some love to the podcast and share this with someone who might need some assistance with that mindset reset and some of the ways they're thinking about the Tomorrow Zone. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to hit like and share, and we will be back again next week with another amazing leader who's going to share storylines from their journey in science, technology, and innovation. Until then, grab some nuggets of what you've learned today. Get out there, find an audience that you would like to move from the red light of risk to the green light of go, and go nail it. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.